In this video, I'm going to go over the best pre-squats warm-up routine that you can utilize to prepare yourself for your squats. Now, if you're interested in improving mobility for squats, I'm going to address that in my next video. So mobility is going to be different than stiffness that you addressed in a warm-up routine. Mobility is not going to be remedied by just reaching a end range of motion that is capable after you've warmed up your body and prepared for your routine. Mobility is best addressed when you're doing specific mobility drills over a long period of time in multiple sessions because that mobility and range of motion is not possible just after one session. So we're looking at your hips, we're looking at your back, your hamstrings. If you aren't physically capable of improving that range of motion, even after warming up, then you need to do mobility drills rather than just warm-up drills. So in this routine, what I'm going to talk about is going to be more dynamic warm-ups, dynamic stretches, workouts, exercises that you can utilize during your squat routine, before your squat routine, to help you improve your range of motion so you can squat pain-free, ache-free, and have a lot of fluid motion with your squats. So the first thing we're going to start off with is going to be low impact cardio just for about 3 or so odd minutes. It's really designed to get your heart rate elevated, get some blood flowing, and really just warm up your muscles overall. One of the good things you can do is hop on a bike. You can hop on an air bike that has the arm handles as well, or a rower as well, because all three of those are going to be low impact and really just warm up your body. You can also walk as well. However, I'd probably stick away from running because of the impact on your joints. It's going to be a little more intense than you need to just for warming up purposes. And probably stick away from an elliptical because the range of motion is not quite natural as well. So the first dynamic stretch we're going to do is going to be an inchworm, which is going to help improve flexibility in your hamstrings, your glutes, your lower back, and your shoulders, and really warm up those body parts overall. So to start, what you're going to do is you're going to come down to the floor, walk your hands down to your feet. If you need to and you don't have that range of motion, you can touch your toes, and then walk your hands out, go into a plank position, and then walk your hands back up, stand up, and then repeat this movement for 10 reps total. So make sure when you're coming down, really feel that stretch in your hamstrings. Don't let your hips sag too much at the bottom because you really want to get a plank position. Keep your core tight. When you're coming back up, make sure you don't start using momentum to push yourself off the ground because you're trying to improve your range of motion and really feel your body start warming up. So next is going to be a high knee pull, which is going to help stretch out your glutes and more proximal hamstring. So what you do is you place your weight on one leg, grab your quad, either weave fingers or over under. You're just going to pull your knee up to your chest and get a little past what you'd normally be able to do doing just regular knee flexion. So here, just pulling up, we're going to alternate again, 10 reps each side, and really just focusing on getting that stretch in that lower glute and also proximal hamstring, so closer to your glute. Another good aspect of your squat is having hamstring flexibility and being able to really feel that stretch there is going to help you when it comes to that pain, the aches that you might have related to hamstrings. And what you're really trying to do is over time bring your knee closer and closer up to your chest, higher up and higher up as you feel your body start to warm up and that routine start to actually take into effect, that your range of motion is improving after you do your 10 or so odd reps. So the next thing we're going to do is going to be a leg swing, which is going to help stretch out your glutes, hamstrings, a bit of hip flexor. What you want to do is you want to find a wall, cable machine, something you can hold on to, and you're going to just brace yourself, put all your weight on one leg, come straight up with your leg, as high up as you can, and then back with your leg so you can get that hip flexor stretch. We're going to do 20 each side. And then just try to make sure your plant leg is way enough shifted that you don't feel like your foot is going to scrape the ground underneath you. Then go ahead and switch sides. Now the next dynamic stretch is going to be lateral leg swings. We're just going to get more adductors, some glute, a little more hamstring, more towards medial hamstring instead. So what you want to do is you can either hold onto a bar or a wall, bring your leg out wide, and then across your body. And then when you're doing really coming up here, you really want to open up your hips and really work on stretching the adductor and coming all the way across so you can feel that stretch in your glute, and really work on coming through and opening up as you do that hip movement. For this one, we're gonna do 15 each side. And then same thing like the regular leg swings that are gonna be in front of you. You wanna make sure that your weight is shifted onto your plant leg so your leg doesn't have the tendency to hit the ground and drag on the floor. So now we're gonna switch sides and same exact thing, 15 reps this side, opening up your hips, coming straight across and through, across your body. And this one's going to be a great dynamic movement. That's going to hit some of those muscles that are more complicated to hit without going across your body. So the next thing we're going to do is going to be hip flexor lunge, which is really going to help stretch out your hip flexor, which is the front of your leg, which is above your quads. So what you're going to do is you're going to go ahead, step up, take a step back, drop your knee down, and lift your arm up. Feel a stretch through the front of your leg, your hips, then come back, switch legs, lift your arm up. And really what this is going to work on is helping a lot of that mobility and tightness and stiffness that you might have from being seated often, from not having your hips in extension as much, because often we do sit a lot in hip flexion, and our hip flexors do get very tight, which can lead to adhesions and discomfort, especially with squatting or any movement that's going to put your leg in hip flexion with load. So alternating legs, you do want to get down, feel a nice stretch, but you don't want to hold it so long that it becomes a static stretch, because again, this is part of your warm-up routine, and it should be helping improve that range of motion and decrease that stiffness and tightness that you do have in your hip flexors. And for this one, we're going to do 10 each side. So the next dynamic stretch we're going to do is going to be a dynamic pigeon stretch rather than a static one. So what you'll need is you'll need a bench to do this, or you can use a box depending on your range of motion. And what you'll do is you're going to sink down to your flexibility, your range of motion that you feel comfortable, and then switch legs. So hands are going to be on the opposite side of the bench. You're going to lift your leg up, place it down so your shin is perpendicular to your torso, sink down, feel that stretch, come back up, switch legs, feel that stretch, and come back up. And the pigeon stretch is going to be really good for stretching out your glutes and also a bit of your lower back. And for this one as well, we're going to do 10 each side, really working on getting mobility back in your hips and your lower back so you can feel comfortable with squatting, because these muscles do have a tendency to lead to more adhesions and also to lead to lower back pain. So if you do have tight hips, tight hamstrings, often that pain will refer in your lower back. And so by doing these movements, by doing these stretches, you should ideally feel a little less discomfort in your lower back and feel more warmth throughout your body as well. So next, we're going to progress away from dynamic stretches and get to some more movement-based stuff. So for this, you'll need a hip circle, more band, and a kettlebell. And so what we're going to do is we're just going to do a kettlebell squat with a pause in the hole. We're going to work on glute engagement, knee tracking, ankle mobility and flexibility, and really just getting that depth in your squat and comfort in the hole. So kettlebell at chest height, elbows tucked in. What you're going to do is set your feet shoulder width apart, toes externally rotated, sit back, hold yourself down the hole, and then just shift your weight side to side. Just a few reps side to side, hold about 10 seconds of the hole, come back up, and then same thing. And what you're really going to work on here is getting rid of that valgus knee as well, which is that tendency for your knees to track inwards when you're squatting. and also just move those hips around, get them comfortable sitting down here. And you want to really make sure that you're keeping your hips as low as possible without coming back up from your squat as well, because you will just have the tendency to want to shift your weight up and squat out when you're doing this mobility drill. And here you should ideally be working on getting deeper and deeper in your range of motion during your squat as well. And next is going to be banded lateral walks, which are going to require your hip circle again. Same thing is going to be above your knees. What you're going to do is you're going to go down to a quarter squat position, and you're going to have your feet at hip width apart. I want you to step to one side, bring your feet to hip width apart, step to the other side, bring your feet to hip width apart. And we're going to do 10 each direction, so 20 total. And what this movement is going to do is going to engage your glute med, glute min, so the muscles back here on the sides that are responsible for abduction of your knees and legs, and also is going to help with that knee valgus. So this is just going to really engage your glutes, really warm them up, prepare them for when you're squatting, when you're getting hip extension, and also making sure your knees track in the right direction. So the next exercise we're going to do is going to be a bootstrap squat, which is going to work on thoracic and hip mobility. So what you want to do is you want to bend forward, put your fingers under your toes, and you're going to let your hips sink down into a squatted position. So here, hands under my toes, fingers under my toes, coming down, sinking down, pulling myself down to that squatted position. And really just working on getting depth in this position by pulling yourself down deeper and deeper into your squat. At the bottom, try to get into thoracic extension and then go thoracic flexion at the top. So working on your thoracic up the top and the bottom, and then also your hips while you're going up and down. So you'll also notice you'll feel a slight hamstring stretch as well. We're just going to do 10 of these. So the next movement that we're going to do is going to be a squat with thoracic rotation, just body weight squat. So you're going to set your feet shoulder width apart, turn your toes out, and what you're going to do is you're going to squat down, reach to the opposite foot, and rotate your thoracic spine up, come back to center, and then go ahead and switch sides to the opposite. And we're going to go ahead and do 8 each side of these. And now your thoracic spine and mobility in your thoracic is going to be so important for so many other movements. And having stability in your back, getting scapular retraction, getting any positioning for any lower body movements is going to be important to have that scapular retraction, that thoracic extension. And working on thoracic rotation will help improve that range of motion and mobility in your back as well. And if you struggle to get further back and can't reach quite as far back, don't worry. The goal of this is just to slowly build up more mobility in your thoracic spine and really warm it up. And if you continue to do this stretch over time, ideally, you'll be able to get a little more rotation through your thoracic spine. Additionally, we're going to be warming up your hips and your legs by going through the squatting movement. Even though it's just body weight, going through that movement pattern will help warm up your legs as well. So the next stretch I'm going to have you do is going to be a band and shoulder dislocation, which you just want to get kind of a light resistance band. You're going to have some tension in the band, so get a little taut, and then you're going to go from in front of you, so kind of in line with your navel, over your head and behind you. And the reason that you do this is that you're going to work on shoulder and back stability and warm up for these muscles as well, which are going to be also important for getting that rack in your squat. If you realize that you struggle getting the shoulder stability and you can't really get around your head, you can grab a little wider and go further out, which will make it a little easier if you don't have shoulder mobility. On the other side is that you don't want to start letting the band get a little loose. You want to keep tension throughout the band as well, so you can do these shoulder dislocations while keeping your muscles engaged. The other way you can do this as well is with a PVC pipe, which is another alternative. However, you won't have to engage your muscles quite as much doing the PVC pipe. For this band of dislocation, we're going to do 10 front and back. And then we're gonna switch after this to around the world. So around the world, you're gonna start, bring one down to your side, one over, and then follow with that same arm. So just one arm at a time until you're behind you, then bring the other arm out in front of you. And do 5 each direction here, and then 5 the other direction. So again, same thing, shoulder warm up, just going through a different range of motion for this specific movement. So the second to last movement is going to be a banded pull apart, which is going to again work out upper extremities and get some more blood flow up here in your shoulders as well. So you're going to have the band straight out in front of you. You want to make sure that they're about almost taut when you're straight out in front of you. You're going to pull straight across your chest and then come back, pull straight across your chest and back to center. Make sure you don't let the band lose tension when you're coming back to center, as you do want to keep your shoulders and thoracic under tension throughout the movement. Big thing here is that you do want to start pushing out your chest when you are getting towards full extension, so full arms all the way out. And as well as that you do want to make sure you're letting yourself stay under tension without using momentum to bring your arms out. Here, the big thing is you're going to start warming up your posterior deltoids and mid-back as well. And you're just going to do 15 of these, and then we'll go ahead and switch up to the last one. So the last movement that we're going to do is going to be a bended overhead squat. So you want to find an upright that's going to be secure that you can attach a band to. You're going to put it between chest and navel height. And what you're going to do from here is place the band up overhead, thumbs on the inside, and you want to keep tension throughout your shoulders and thoracic spine. You're going to squat down and maintaining that overhead position throughout the duration of this movement. So we can finish up this warm-up and then finally move on to squatting. For this one specifically, you're going to do 12 reps. So now we can go ahead and go under the barbell. What you're going to do is just empty barbell. I want you to come underneath it, and we're just going to work on a slow eccentric squat and just getting a little depth at the bottom, letting just the weight of the bar kind of get you comfortable with your knee tracking and positioning with a barbell. So about 2 to 3 seconds on the way down, hold at the bottom, and then come back up. And so now that we're adding an external load, you can feel how all of these mobility movements have helped you and have increased any of that range of motion stiffness that you had prior to starting squatting. And finally, you can progress to using weights for your barbell squats. So everything in this video is going to be super important, super relevant for generating mobility and getting rid of stiffness in specific parts of your body. However, because it does end up taking a bit of time, and because if you don't have certain parts of your body that suffer from stiffness or mobility issues, then you can go ahead and pick and choose what's going to be most relevant to you. I do recommend at least trying this out for a full way through to see what really is going to benefit your squat the most. And then from there, we'll go ahead and address how to improve mobility with specific parts of your body. So ankle mobility, because ankle mobility is going to be a huge important factor when you aren't able to track your knees as far forward. Also hip mobility to be able to get depth in your squat as well. And then also thoracic extension, flexion, rotation. All of these different movements in different parts of the squat are going to be super important. And generating mobility is going to take time as well as continued effort over an extended period of time, so you can overall improve your squat mobility and then be able to squat pain-free with good mobility and then be very strong with that movement as well. So that's all for today's video, and I will see you in the next one.